guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenna from Sweet Tooth Baking, and today I will be showing you how to make a cake shaped like a lipstick. Yes, you heard me, like a lipstick. This is based off my favorite brand, Charlotte Tilbury, in the color Pillow Talk. I was introduced to this lipstick by some family members who helped me prepare for my wedding in August. So without further ado, let's begin. To make a cake that resembles this lipstick, I'm actually going to be making a 3-tiered cake, but a small version. So I have cakes already prepared that I've had in my fridge for a very long time because I've been wanting to make this video. So they're a little bit old, but that's okay. You're gonna need 3 different sizes of tiers. So the bottom portion of this lipstick will be the largest tier, then we'll have a taller middle section, and then a short little section of cake for the top tier, which we're gonna angle. First step then is to cut all of our cakes into smaller layers. And there are multiple ways to do that. You can use a serrated knife, but I have this really random tool that I have been using for many years. It doesn't even have the little, it used to come with this little silicone or rubber kind of stoppers on the bottom to prevent this screeching, but I'm using tape because this is just how old it is. I'm just gonna hold my cake steady with my left hand and hold this tool in my right hand, and with a sawing motion just cut directly into the cake. We're gonna just continue this whole process for all of the cakes that we have here, and then I'll show you what we do next. This cake is very mix and match because I have red velvet, a little bit of gluten-free birthday cake, and also some regular birthday cake. So it's just whatever I had in my fridge. Anyway, I think we have the basic shape of the lipstick down. Top part, like I said, is going to be the pigmented part, which is the actual lipstick. This middle zone here is going to be just this outer area that covers the lipstick and that the cap fits onto, and then the bottom barrel here is just going to represent the bottom barrel of the lipstick. It doesn't look like much now, but hopefully eventually it will. I'm going to trim my layers now, but I'm going to actually move my lipstick out of the way because it doesn't need to get ruined in the process. So we'll just leave it on the side, and I'm going to just start trimming a little bit of excess just from the outside. So the next step is to frost our cake. So I'm going to fill it with some vanilla buttercream, and then we're going to cover the whole thing in fondant to just give it a nice sheen. The first thing I'm going to do is just make sure I'm sticking my cake directly onto my board. So we're going to apply a little bit of frosting, and then we're going to place our cake right on top of it. Now that our first layer is down, we can add a little bit of frosting right into the middle of this cake, and then we'll start adding our layers. Now that all my layers have been stacked with frosting in between, we're going to do what's called a crumb coat. So there are quite a lot of crumbs that are just falling from the cake here, especially since it's a little bit dry. It's been sitting in my fridge forever. So we're going to just apply a really thin layer of buttercream just right along the outside of our cake, just to seal in all those crumbs, and that's what a crumb coat is. Once we've achieved that step, we're going to place our cake in the fridge for at least 20 minutes, or you can even pop it in the freezer for this crumb coat layer to set. We can smooth this crumb coat layer out using a scraper, just holding it against the cake and turning the cake turntable at the same time. That way we just get a really nice clean edge. And then you can tidy up the top of your edges just by scraping the excess buttercream from the top inwards. Now we're going to place this in the fridge and continue on with the rest of our layers. The last part of this is to make the lipstick part of the cake. It's going to be this smaller tier, and we're going to angle it to actually make it look like our favorite Charlotte Tilbury lipstick. So, to start, I'm just going to place the full 4 little layers I have here, and we're just going to use a serrated knife to try to get an angle. I'm going to use my lipstick here as a reference and just try to cut it out. I just have to warn you, I'm not the best at sculpting. Sculpting cakes takes me a really long time, and it's hard for me to get the angles right. I think I have the main part down, which is that first sliding angle, and then this lipstick kind of has 2 cuts right along the sides here to make the top look like a square, but then to kind of give a more of an angular shape to the side, so it's not going to be just a straight cylinder. Let's try it out. After all that trimming, I think I've achieved the final look here. The next step now is to carefully take each layer apart and then add a little bit of buttercream in between each. Three cakes have been crumb coated now, and this is what they all look like at the moment. The next step now is to add a really thin layer of buttercream on the outside of these cool crumb coated cakes, and then we're going to put our fondant on top of that. Next step is to use our fondant to cover the cake. A smaller lipstick here, we're going to cover that in this kind of pinky nude tone, just so that we have like a nice colored lipstick, like Pillow Talk. I'll be using this brand new tub of satin ice fondant to decorate the cake, and it comes in this little plastic bag. So I'm just going to take my knife and cut a chunk of fondant off for the cake decorating portion, and it will soften up as we need it. So body heat will help, or I even like to pop it in the microwave for like 5 seconds to just get really soft. So I'm just gonna pop this in the microwave for about 5 seconds, and it will be nice and soft and easy to work with. Fondant can get quite sticky, so I like to use some cornstarch on my counter just to prevent it from sticking to the counter. And I don't know how much is too much, honestly, but I feel like I use a liberal amount. So we're just gonna knead it. As you can see, it's much easier to knead now that it's been warmed up. I'm gonna start rolling it out using my rolling pin here. I'm gonna continually move the fondant around so that it doesn't get sticky. And if you feel like it is starting to get sticky, just apply a little bit more cornstarch on the base, and then it should be okay on the counter. So what I like to do is roll my fondant onto my rolling pin and then place it on the cake. That way we're ensuring that we don't have any rips in the fondant. So I like to start from the front and then just kind of drape it right over. I'm just gonna start by smoothing out the top and then slowly start working down the edges of the cake. This has taken lots of practice and I'm still not super good at it, but we're just gonna go around in a circle and slowly smooth the fondant down into the cake as we go around. Next thing we're going to do is smooth the fondant out. You're just going to take your fondant smoothers and just go up and down along the side of the cake just to get any of those little bumps out, and then you can do the same thing on the top. So the next step now is to just trim the edges off this board. So I'm going to move the cake over to my cake turntable now, and we can trim it using pizza cutters, or you can also just use a knife for closer precision. So just starting here at the back, I'm just going to cut fairly close to the cake but not too close. Now that we've cut once around the cake, we can just rip this whole skirt of fondant off, and that can be reused for our next portion of the cake. Now that the bottom tier and the middle tier have been covered, the last thing that we have to cover is the top lipstick part. But like I said, we're just gonna dye this fondant to that lipstick color like Pillow Talk, and then cover the cake using the colored fondant. I have these new Color Mill food colorings that I just purchased, and I'm super excited to use them. I think there is a dark enough color here. Maybe I'll use a combination of rust, dusk, and burgundy. And I think combining all of these three colors together is going to make a pretty good lipstick shade. So we'll start off with a little bit of burgundy and add a little bit of rust in there as well. Still a bit off from the color, but it will develop over time. So I'm going to stop here because even if it doesn't match the Charlotte Tilbury lipstick color, I feel like I still like this color and would probably wear it as a lipstick shade. Anyway, I'm happy with this. Next step, of course, is to just drape the last piece of our cake. Alright, our cakes are fully covered now, so we can start our decoration. The Charlotte Tilbury lipstick has some kind of indents or lines, almost like a pinstripe, going down the base of the tube. So we're going to try to recreate that on the bottom tier. This middle tier is shiny and flat, so we're not going to really touch that other than adding the gold. And then of course the lipstick part just stays as it is. To create the indents on the bottom tier of this cake, I'm going to use this curved ball tool. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but that's what I'm going to call it. We're just going to push this softly into the side of the cake, and a downward motion just create a line. So I'm going to do that all around this cake, and then we'll have our lined pattern. The next part is to add our middle tier on top of our bottom tier. But before we do that, we need to ensure that the weight of this middle tier doesn't crush the cake underneath. What we usually do is add dowels or supports into the cake. So you could use a wooden stick, or you could use plastic straws, or really anything. Since this cake is not so big, I'm just going to use one plastic straw right down the middle so that the weight of the cake is actually resting on top of the straw and not on top of this bottom tier. Straw goes directly into the cake. We're just going to pull the straw up slightly, trim right below, and then push the straw back in. Now we have a perfectly stable base tier for our middle tier. I have a little bit of buttercream left from earlier, so I'm just going to apply a little in the middle. You want to make sure that you're not spreading out too much so that you'd see it underneath this cake. So just have a small inner layer of buttercream here, and then you can push the cake right on top. Let's just place it right on top. There we go. I'm just going to use my fondant smoother just to make sure that that's really nice and stuck on. Then we can smooth out any lumps or bumps that we made while we were transferring it over. Now finally, the last tier has to go on. We're going to do the same thing with our plastic straw dowel here. Just going to apply some pressure right down the middle until we hit the base. Lift up a little. Chop it, and then push the straw in. So again, the weight of that lipstick will be resting on the straw and not on the cake. We won't get any bulging of fondant or filling or anything like that. I'm missing one piece of decoration, which is a little belt. So on this little lipstick here, there is just a small little belt that has these divots. That's where the cap fits on. So we're just going to create exactly the same thing. Just a little bit of a belt around with little dots on it. Now we can stick this little piece of fondant right along the base of the second tier. Hopefully it doesn't break in the process. Sometimes it does. I'm going to paint a little bit of water just around the base of this to make it sticky. So I've got a good amount of water there, and we'll start from the back. Just trim the excess off with a knife, and now we can create those little divots. So I'm just going to take a little piece of fondant and roll it in my hand just to create a little ball, and then we'll flatten that, and that will be our divot. Next step here is to paint this whole thing gold. So I'm going to be doing that by a mixture of dust and alcohol together. It's going to make paint, and I have a paintbrush, and I'll just paint away. If you're worried about the alcohol, it will evaporate and it will just leave the gold paint behind. It's just a really good solvent to use. Another option to use if you're really against the alcohol is to use lemon juice. Lemon juice will work just the same. But remember that I also have rose gold dust, so I'm going to add a little bit into here as well. And then maybe we can, oops, that's a lot. That's okay, it's going to look hopefully nice. Now to get this top tier on, we can pretty much just place this cake right on top, and it should stick perfectly fine. It should come off fairly easily. There we go. There we go. Lipstick cake has been attained. So I'm going to just add a thin layer of fondant just around the base here to make it look clean. There we have it, a lipstick cake based off my favorite lipstick in the perfect shade. Not bad for my first try ever doing something like this. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe and keep watching for the bloopers. See ya! Oh, how old is this cake? It's so old. That is just too many words. Cake has been crumb coated and smoothed. Smoothed? Okay.